Hello, and welcome to the 49th episode of Chorus Place. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me for today's conversation. In today's episode, I will be sharing some more personal stories of times in my own life where I had to choose faith over fear. As always, if you like what you hear, please leave a review and/or comments. Please follow my podcast and tell your friends. Also, please follow the podcast page I've made on Facebook. If you'd like to contact me via email instead of a Facebook message, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org. If you are new here, welcome. I'm your host, Cora, and I am so excited to have you on this journey with me. Today, I want to share with you some more personal stories from my own life where I had to choose faith over fear. I know I did this topic, or something very similar, back in episode 9, but I wanted to share other stories / go more in depth on this topic. First, before I get into the topic, I just wanted to apologize for taking a little bit longer to release episodes again. It wasn't completely intentional to take a couple of weeks off, but I didn't really have any super great chances to record for a few days. Now, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. One of the first stories that comes to my mind, other than my initial trip to Montana in 2021, that I want to share, is during the summer of 2023 when I was working at a camp. Before I left both times, I was a bit nervous and also kind of overwhelmed, but then once I got used to it all, I was okay. It definitely took a little time to adjust for sure. I think adjusting during the 2023 camp experience definitely took a little bit longer than the 2024 experience. It probably took a few days or so to adjust in 2023, but then it only took a few minutes or so during the 2024 experience. I think at least part of the reason I had an easier time adjusting during 2024 was because I already knew more or less the general idea of what to expect, plus I had a few friends who were also working that year. However, when I worked there in 2023, I didn't know what to do, so it was a little more nerve-wracking for me then. I was still nervous at first during my 2024 experience, but I'm not really sure why. It was weird to be nervous that time since I mostly knew what to expect. I think part of the contributing factor to my nervousness was how sudden it was. Originally, I had been told that I was not going to be able to work on the full-time salary over the summer, but then, not long after that, the same day but a few hours after the initial email that I had received that I was not going to be able to work on the full-time salary, I was told that some things had changed and it would work out for me to do the full-time salary. I think I was in shock at that point because I had been told originally that I would not be able to do the full-time salary. I also felt kind of stressed and overwhelmed at first because that meant that I had a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. I think the timeline from finding out that I was going to be able to work at camp in 2024 to actually arriving at camp was only about a week to a week and a half. There was a lot I had to do in a short amount of time because things had changed kind of suddenly. I definitely loved working at camp again though, and you can hear about some of my 2024 experiences in episodes 39 to 41. I don't share all of the experiences in those 3 episodes, but I share just different parts about the 3 weeks I enjoyed most for the 2024 camp experience. Some other situations that come to mind where I had or have to choose faith over fear are the times when I share hard things on this podcast. If I'm being honest, my goal with this podcast is to share both the good and the hard. I fear that if I am not vulnerable and share the hard things, nobody will share when hard things happen. It's not easy sharing hard or sad things, but it might help. Please reach out if you need someone to talk to. I know I probably say that a lot, but I just want you to know that I am here for you and I'm happy to help if I can. I would also be happy to try to find someone you can talk to if I don't have the knowledge or whatever to be able to help. I definitely don't have expertise in every situation, but I don't want that to discourage you from reaching out to me if you need someone to talk to. I think that knowing that you have someone you can talk to if you need it can be really good and it can help. I know it definitely helps me sometimes. However, I also know that I sometimes tend to pull away a little bit from people when I'm struggling. It's not always on purpose though. Sometimes I don't even realize that I'm doing it. It just kind of happens. I want to talk to people when I struggle, but I don't always feel ready in the moment. It depends on the situation though. There have definitely been situations in my life where I didn't share specific details with some people because I felt like I needed more time to process them on my own before I shared them with others. I don't share the hard things on this podcast because I feel forced to. I share them because I want to and I choose to share them. I would probably not do it if I felt forced to. If you feel like someone is forcing you to share things that you are not comfortable sharing, please take a step back and ask yourself if you really should be sharing them with that specific person. You don't have to if you don't want to. You shouldn't have to feel forced to share the hard things in life if you are not comfortable with that. It's up to you whether or not you want to share. It probably will also depend on the situation and the person. Sometimes it is wise to not share certain things with other people right away, or even at all, depending on the circumstance. It can be hard to know what to share or what not to share, though. I even struggle with that sometimes, so please don't feel like you are alone in that, because you are most definitely not alone. Choosing faith over fear can be challenging and scary sometimes, but it can also have so many amazing benefits. When we choose faith over fear, amazing things can happen. If we constantly live in fear, we will miss out on amazing blessings and benefits that God has in store for us. God doesn't want us to live in fear. In fact, he tells us in 2 Timothy 1:7 that he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. We can trust God to keep us safe. In Psalm 56:3, we see that when we are afraid, we can put our trust in God. In Psalm 4:8, we see that we can lie down and sleep in peace, for he alone makes us dwell in safety. Choosing faith over fear can really help us in moments when we feel scared, sad, alone, anxious, upset, stressed, overwhelmed, and hurting. God will help us when we ask him because he is where our help comes from. See Psalm 121. If we are in a season of rejoicing while someone we love is weeping, or vice versa, we should be happy for them if they are happy, or mourn with them while they mourn. We can both weep and rejoice at the same time. It is totally okay and possible for weeping and rejoicing to coexist. It may not always feel good to your heart, but it is okay. You are not alone in feeling that way. If you find yourself as the one weeping right now, I am so sorry for whatever it is that is causing you to be in this season of weeping. God is right there with you in the midst of your struggles. You are not alone. You can cry out to him and pour out your burdens to him. See Psalm 55, verse 22, and 1 Peter 5:7. He sees your pain and he will wipe every tear from your eyes. See Revelation 21:4. Our pain that we are enduring right now is not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed to us. See Romans 8:18. When we are brokenhearted, God will be near to us. See Psalm 34, verse 18. We are told to count it all as joy when we go through trials. Doing that will produce steadfastness in us. See James 1, verses 2 through 4. Happiness and joy are two different things. Happiness comes from our circumstances, and joy comes from Jesus. Our circumstances can't bring us joy. The only way we can have joy in our lives is if we have Jesus in our lives. Jesus is the true source of satisfaction, contentment, joy, and life. Our circumstances can only bring us temporary happiness. Jesus is the only one who can truly fill our lives. He fills voids in our lives that only he can fill. If we try to look to other things like people, hobbies, or achievements to fill us, they will only bring us temporary happiness instead of true and lasting joy and contentment. I would much rather have true and lasting joy/contentment instead of temporary happiness. We can rest in the fact that Jesus is providing things for us that we may not even know we need at that moment. In all honesty, these are all things I need to remember in my own life too. Also, if you know someone who is struggling right now, please try to remember to give them grace. I recently attended a conference with some friends of mine as of the recording of this episode, and I was able to get some really good notes. There was a phrase from one of the authors that stuck out to me from that conference. I think it was Jennifer Rothschild who said it, but I can't remember for sure, and I might not be quoting it exactly right. The basic idea of the phrase that stuck out to me was, God can make it well with my soul, even when it is not well with my circumstances. I think that deep in all of our hearts, even if we aren't willing to admit it, that's what we all want in our lives. I know I definitely want that in my own life for sure. It definitely does not always feel well with my circumstances, but it can be well with my soul, despite that, if I trust that God is making it well with my soul. That weekend was so incredible. I am intending to make an episode talking about that experience soon, so stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please follow, leave a comment, and a review of my podcast if you haven't already, and please follow my podcast page on Facebook so you never miss an update. If you have any verses you'd like me to read on a future episode, or if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org, or you can send me a message on my podcast page on Facebook through the link in the show notes, and I will get back to you when I can. Hope you tune in next week for the 50th episode.